It's Wednesday, the 16th of August, 2023. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and with Sean Aylmer still on holidays, Jennifer Duke joins me instead. Jen, good morning.
Good morning.
5 stories in 5 minutes. Let's get straight into it. Story number 1, the Australian government might soon impose a green tariff on imports of steel and cement from countries like China and India and Vietnam.
Climate Change Minister Chris Bowen is trying to level the playing field for Aussie producers with a potential carbon border adjustment mechanism. And this is really a fancy way of saying a tariff with eco-friendly conditions attached. Australian companies need to cut their carbon emissions, but that comes at a cost. So he reckons a solution might be forcing offshore competitors to pay if they're from countries with weaker decarbonisation policies, which is to say he's looking at protecting local companies while Australia transitions to net zero.
Is this actually going to happen? And if so, how soon is soon?
So right now it's just something that's being considered, but there's complex rules at play here, including from the World Trade Organization, and there's geopolitics. However, the government's major decarbonisation policy has already hit the industry from July 1. So there's a sense of urgency here. Industrial, manufacturing and resource companies need to cut emissions by around 5% a year up until 2030. They'll be feeling more pain as this ramps up. And bear in mind, the European Union is looking at a similar idea from 2026.
I'm not 100% sure on how this works, because wouldn't it just help the big emitters?
That is definitely one way of looking at it, but the government's worried about what is known as carbon leakage, and this is where producers shift their operations to other countries where carbon emissions policies are less aggressive and therefore it's less costly to operate. It's also about finding the right balance and ensuring Australia doesn't lose the economic benefits of these businesses in the first place while ensuring the net zero goal is reached.
Okay, on to story number 2 now. National Australia Bank brought in $1.9 billion in cash earnings over the June quarter, slightly above expectations and 5.8% up year on year.
It was a big number, but the real talk of reporting season for the banks has been all about mortgages. It's the first time in many years we've had pretty high interest rates, and there's a big focus on how homeowners are faring. Commonwealth Bank, Bendigo and Adelaide Bank have all seen a small rise in customers falling behind on their loans. And we're seeing that with NAB now as well. Their number of loans that are more than 90 days overdue increased slightly. Now, that doesn't sound too bad, but it's possibly a bit early to say the mortgage cliff that we're all worried about isn't going to happen yet. There's a lot of people rolling off of fixed loans onto higher variable rates over the rest of this year.
All right, on to story number 3 now. And Treasury Wine Estates shareholders may be raising a glass to the top end of town. That's one of the big takeaways, really, from their results, which shows premium customers are still drinking their favourite brands.
Their results are completely fascinating if you think about the cost of living pressures at the moment. The Penfolds arm of the wine company had a 14% increase in earnings to $365 million over the last financial year. And Chief Executive Tim Ford said the demand for premium wine is likely to stay consistently high.
Dare I ask, Jen, about the cheaper bottles?
Yeah, this is where things get a bit more wobbly. There was a 5.4% drop in earnings across the arm of the business with those cheaper brands like Wolf Blass, Pepperjack and Lindemans.
And just quickly, we've been talking a lot about the potential easing of trade tensions with China, particularly kind of as they may relate to wine. Would this give Treasury a boost?
They do have an arrangement that helps them get wine into the hands of Chinese consumers at the moment, but it's far from ideal, and they're absolutely watching for improvements in the relationship with Beijing. A statement from the company said that Penfolds is going to take a measured approach to phasing shipments across all markets so they can maintain flexibility of global distribution. In other words, they're going to be holding on to some extra bottles of Penfolds for a few months to see how it all works out.
Story number 4, Australia Post is stepping up its services across capital cities in a bid to help e-commerce retailers battle against retail giant Amazon.
So this new service is called Australia Post Metro, and it's a next-day delivery service for the inner capital city areas. There's plenty of demand for quick and reliable deliveries in this highly competitive environment. Big shocker. This is partly to do with the big shift in shopping behaviours with people looking for those value brands online.
And when does it all kick off?
So in Melbourne, Sydney and Brisbane, they're already first to get access to this service, and crucially it will mean merchants can access later cut-off times for orders so customers can get their next day deliveries even when they're shopping late at night. And this has required quite the effort from AusPost, which has had to change up its systems. They're hoping to sign up more brands in the months ahead and extend into other metro areas, but probably not regional anytime soon.
Okay, last one, story number 5. Always good to have an Elon Musk story to round out the show. And Tesla has slashed prices on its cars again in China, sparking fears that the international price wars on EVs will ramp up.
Tesla has cut the prices on its long-range and performance versions of the Model Y, according to Bloomberg, which was citing the company's Chinese-language Weibo account. This sent car stocks lower. Tesla started cutting prices towards the end of last year, and it's actually put the gap between the cost of its vehicles to about 50% below those in the US and Europe. Bear in mind that in July, Tesla agreed to sign a pledge with other major car makers to avoid abnormal pricing, but days afterwards he said they could still reduce prices due to turbulent market conditions.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Jen.
Thanks so much, Michael.
It's Wednesday, the 16th of August, 2023. Remember to hit follow on the podcast, and if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed Business News, wherever you listen to podcasts. And every Wednesday, there's a new episode of How Do They Afford That, our sister podcast. This week, we are looking at multi-level marketing programs, things like Tupperware and Amway and Avon and all of those, and whether you can actually make money from them. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.